several factors about mathematical interventions that I think are really important from a pedagogical point of view. And the first of all is that everybody knows that maths is a subject that is very much kind of a building block subject. So once you've learned one concept, like, for example, multiplying and dividing by 10, 100 and 1,000, not until you've learned that concept could you learn another concept like converting metric measures, because if you can't multiply or divide by 100, you're never going to convert between centimeters and meters. So the interventions that we've prepared, the SHINE interventions, they very much have an awareness of the conceptual building blocks, if you like, and we make sure that at the beginning of an intervention, it will say that students may benefit from a review of multiplying and dividing by 10 and 100 and 1,000, so on. So you can prepare your students, and it will point back to other interventions that can help with that as well. So if you find that your students are weak in that area, then you know where to go, which as a teacher is so valuable, because as Marie said, you know, you're busy, and the most help you can get in direction with the interventions, the better. Another pedagogical aspect of the interventions is scaffolding. So making sure that students are learning in small incremental steps. So steps that move them on in terms of progress, but don't require them to make a huge jump at any one point so that they don't get lost. Another thing I'm very keen on is the idea of visual representations of concepts. I think many students find mathematics concepts quite abstract, and so the more visual representations you can provide, the better. So obvious ones are number lines and bar diagrams, for example, to represent concepts. And throughout the maths interventions, we have included useful visual representations, but also we've got the PowerPoints as in English, and in the slide notes of those PowerPoints, it suggests like little activities, questions, discussions you might have. And one of those activities that accompany visual representations is not just to show and to show how to use them, but to get students to actually sit there and close their eyes and try and visualize them for themselves. And then in terms of scaffolding, that visualization on the screen might be taken away, but students are asked to still close their eyes and try and visualize what that visual might look like. So you're kind of training students to adopt a mathematical strategy that is incredibly useful. And, you know, as you move on in mathematical understanding, it's something that becomes incredibly useful, for example, visualizing a linear graph or something like that. So visualization is another very powerful pedagogical strategy in maths that we've adopted in the interventions. And finally, of course, it's every maths teacher will know it's practice, practice, practice. And so, you know, practice is a key pedagogical technique in mathematics. So having learned a concept or have, you know, you can demonstrate your understanding through practice questions. And again, a bit like the building blocks, a bit like the scaffolding, they have to come in small incremental steps of difficulty. So students are progressing, but we're not asking them to jump too far in any one step so as to affect their confidence.
To echo that in relation to the English, we've worked also on an approach where the students work with modelled examples to start with, then scaffolded examples, and then drawing them on towards their own independent interaction with questions and texts. So similarly to the maths, underpinning the way that students learn can be supported.
Yeah, and similarly in maths, we've got the worked examples, which are like your modelled examples, and then you might have a structured question where you fill in the gaps, and then the structure is taken away and you just answer the question.